Something very unusual just happened. Russia noticed it, North Korea noticed it, and now both regimes are quietly recalculating their survival strategies because the Trump administration may have just demonstrated a new kind of diplomacy, regime decapitation diplomacy. Iran's leadership wiped out, Maduro removed in Venezuela. And now analysts inside Russia are asking a question that would have sounded insane a few months ago. Is Russia next? Before we get into that, there's one detail about this entire situation that almost nobody in the media is talking about. Something Russia built during the Cold War that can make the entire situation far more dangerous than people realize. We'll come back to that. Let's start with what triggered all of this. Operation Epic Fury targeted Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, along with more than 40 senior Iranian leaders. And all that was just in the first strike. Now, here's where that matters. Iran isn't Venezuela. Iran is a near nuclear power. That means this strike wasn't just tactical, it was strategic signaling. The United States demonstrated that it is willing to go directly after hostile regimes, even ones approaching nuclear capability. And authoritarian governments around the world noticed immediately. Two of them in particular, North Korea and Russia. Let's talk about North Korea first, because that's where the calculations get complicated. South Korean political leaders immediately issued warnings that what happened in Iran could signal what lies ahead for Kim Jong-un. Jin Dong-hyuk of South Korea's People Power Party said something very blunt. The world was just reminded what happens to dictatorships obsessed with nuclear weapons. Now think about that from Kim Jong-un's perspective, because suddenly he's facing a very uncomfortable strategic choice, and neither option is good. Option one, accelerate nuclear weapons development. More warheads, more missiles, more deterrence. The logic is simple. If you can threaten nuclear retaliation, regime change becomes much harder. Option two, open negotiations with Washington, lower tensions, reduce the risk of becoming the next target. But that's where things get strange. North Korea's noticed something unsettling. Recently, the United States has shown a pattern of bombing governments it's negotiating with, Venezuela, Iran, which raises a question inside Pyongyang that nobody wants to ask out loud. Are negotiations actually diplomacy, or are they buying time before a strike? And North Korea's reaction to the Iranian strike reveals just how nervous they may be, because the regime did something very unusual. They condemned the strike publicly, but they didn't even mention Khamenei's death inside of North Korea itself. Why? Because dictatorships fear one thing almost as much as a foreign invasion: their own people realizing dictatorships can fall. So now Kim Jong-un sits at a strategic crossroad. North Korea could dramatically accelerate its nuclear program, more warheads, more missile tests, more provocations, or they could attempt negotiations to reduce tensions. But that path creates risk. Push nuclear development too aggressively, and it could trigger the confrontation they want to avoid. negotiate too openly, and at risk appearing weak internally. So, what's the likely outcome? Most analysts believe North Korea will do both: expand nuclear capabilities while simultaneously strengthen her ties with China and Russia, build a geopolitical shield against American intervention. But North Korea is uneasy. Russia may be even more complicated. Bear country. The Kremlin was reportedly stunned by the strike on Iran. And the reason is simple. Iran has become one of Russia's most important wartime partners. Iran supplied Russia with Shahed drones in large numbers. Iranian engineers helped Russia build domestic drone production lines, and Tehran helped Moscow evade sanctions. So, when Iran's leadership suddenly disappeared, Russian propaganda started asking uncomfortable questions. Three narratives started circulating across Russian media. Russia failed to protect its allies. Russia was betrayed by Trump. And the most alarming narrative of all, Russia might be next. So, Russian nationalist philosopher Alexander Dugin delivered a warning that spread quickly across Russian media. His argument was chilling. Trump negotiates first, then attacks later. He pointed to Venezuela. He pointed to Iran. He warned that Russia could be the next example. In Dugin's word, the last bell has rung for Russia. Even Kremlin television host Vladimir Solovyov struck a darker tone. He warned that the world may be entering an era where international rules no longer apply. Only great power conflict. But there's something else here that makes the entire situation far more dangerous. Something that most people outside of military strategy circles rarely talk about. And that's where the story gets truly unsettling. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union built something called Dead Hand. It was one of the most terrifying systems ever created. Dead Hand was designed to solve a specific problem. What if Soviet leadership were wiped out in a decapitation strike? What if no one remained to order retaliation? Dead Hand's solution was simple: automate the response. If sensors detected nuclear detonations and communications with the leadership failed, the system would automatically launch a full-scale nuclear retaliation without anyone involved, no people. That's why they call it Dead Hand. It will launch all of Russia's nuclear missiles at once, even if no human command remained. Think about that for a moment. A system designed specifically for the scenario Russian commentators are now worrying about. It's just like the doomsday device from the movie Dr. Strangelove. So the real risk, escalation right now, the world may be entering a new strategic phase. Authoritarian regimes are reassessing their survival strategies. North Korea may accelerate nuclear development. Russia may harden its posture even further. And the message being sent from Washington appears to be this: no hostile regime is untouchable. But when regime change strategies begin intersecting with nuclear armed states, history tells us something more important. The margin for error becomes exceedingly small, and miscalculation becomes extremely dangerous. So, yes, Russia and North Korea are nervous, and for good reason, because the geopolitical rules that govern the world and have governed it for decades are changing. The real question is not whether dictators are worried. They clearly are. The real question is this: are we witnessing strategic signaling or the early stages of a more dangerous global confrontation? Because if great powers start testing regime change strategies against nuclear states, the consequences could reshape global stability for decades. And that's something we'll be watching very closely here on Green Gregs. If you want deeper analysis on the geopolitical forces shaping our future, subscribe to the channel, bang the bell, and click all, because the next decade may be one of the most consequential in modern history. And we're going to break it down step by step in future videos, so you want to stay tuned for that. Keep your eyes wide open and head on a swivel. And I'll put another video for you to watch right here. Thank you for watching.